In the heart of the forest, a young woman named Shirayuki walked among the trees, focused on her search for medicinal herbs. She was an herbalist from her village, known for treating ailments with her knowledge of plants. Meanwhile, in the palace, the prince heard of her. But what caught his attention most was Shirayuki's hair, an intense, unusual red, something that set her apart from all other girls. What Shirayuki did not imagine was that this uniqueness would soon bring trouble. After treating a woman in need of care, Shirayuki returned to her work. The day continued normally until someone knocked on her door. Upon opening it, she found one of the prince's men, who brought an unexpected announcement. The prince had decided to take her as his wife, but not as his only wife. She was to accept being his second wife. The mere thought of it filled Shirayuki with immediate revulsion, but she said nothing at that moment. However, she was determined and would never accept such a fate. That very night, she gathered her things and left. She knew the prince was only interested in her because of her appearance, so without hesitation, she cut her own hair. She left everything behind and set off on a new journey. During her escape, she walked for a long time until she spotted a village. Exhausted, she sought shelter and found a large house. She tried to open the door, but it was locked. With no other choice, she sat outside to rest. When she awoke, she noticed the presence of a man approaching. In the next instant, he attempted to jump, but ended up injuring himself. Feeling responsible, Shirayuki offered help, but he refused, suspicious. To him, there was no guarantee that it wasn't poison disguised as medicine. Shirayuki understood the hesitation, and, without saying anything, took out her sword, made a small cut on her own hand, and applied the herb right there. The man watched in silence, surprised. Gradually, his mistrust faded, and he finally allowed her to help. His name was Zen, and he was accompanied by two friends, Mitsui and Kiki. While Shirayuki treated the wound, Zen began introducing himself and speaking a little about his companions. Soon after, it was Shirayuki's turn to talk about herself. She explained that she was an herbalist and had dedicated her life to helping others. After some conversation, she decided to take a walk, and this time, he decided to accompany her. The two walked through the park, while their friends watched from afar, commenting that they saw no danger in her presence. However, there was something that seemed evident. Zen was starting to form a bond with the young woman. As they walked, Shirayuki's hair got caught in a branch. Zen prepared to help her, but before doing so, he asked why she had cut her hair. After a brief moment of reflection, she told him everything. Zen listened attentively, and in the end, couldn't help but laugh. To him, it seemed like a great effort for such a small problem. After that, they returned to the house and found a basket of fruit waiting for them. They brought it inside and continued their conversation. It was then that Shirayuki revealed that the prince who was pursuing her was actually the ruler of her homeland. He had already tarnished his reputation in other kingdoms with his questionable behavior. As they spoke, Shirayuki picked up one of the fruits, but something seemed off. Before she could react, Zen had already taken a bite. Soon after, he began feeling unwell and fainted. No one understood what was happening until a man appeared, saying that the fruit had been sent by the prince himself. The goal was to poison Shirayuki. Now the situation was clear. If she wanted Zen to survive, she would have to go to the prince. Without hesitation, Shirayuki followed the instructions. Upon arrival, the prince explained that he had been watching her for some time, and that in order to get the antidote, she would have to marry him. It was a shock. She thought of the past and how, in a way, that man had already extended a hand to her. Still, she couldn't accept his demands. Just as she was about to give in for Zen's sake, something unexpected happened. Zen appeared before the prince, showing no sign of weakness. The ruler tried to ignore him as if his presence was irrelevant. But then, Zen revealed his true identity. He was the second prince of the kingdom of Clarines. From that moment on, the game had changed. Zen warned the prince that if he tried anything against Shirayuki again, he would expose the truth about the poisoning to everyone. The prince realized he had no choice and finally backed down. Shirayuki, feeling victorious, made sure to express her frustration before leaving. But before leaving, she grabbed the antidote and ran to save Zen. When Zen recovered, he made an unexpected suggestion. Shirayuki should stay with him in Clarines. He said he believed that fate had brought them together and that they should not ignore it. She reflected on it and, in the end, agreed. When they arrived in Clarines, Shirayuki began to adapt to her new life. She found a place to stay and soon resumed her studies of herbal medicine. Over time, she began to look for work, but discovered that there weren't many opportunities at the moment. During a conversation with the owner of an herb shop, a boy entered to make a purchase. His behavior caught Shirayuki's attention, and the shopkeeper explained that he was the best herbalist in the village. From that moment on, she decided that she wanted to become as skilled as him. The shop owner then gave her information about places where she could expand her learning. Later, Shirayuki decided to look for Zen and ask if she could help him. Mitsuhide and Kiki were guarding the entrance to the palace. When they noticed her hair, they were surprised. They remembered that Zen had already spoken of her before, mentioning that she was a special friend and that no one should stop her from coming and going. Shortly after, Shirayuki boarded a carriage to another city. During the trip, she explained that she was seeking more knowledge about herbs. When they arrived, they found a wine merchant who was negotiating with Zen. The merchant knew him well, but that day Zen politely declined the offer. Then Shirayuki and Zen decided to walk around the city, enjoying their time together. During the walk, Shirayuki revealed her interest in understanding the local lifestyle. Before they could continue the conversation, a ship arrived. Shirayuki looked at Zen and promised that she would meet him that night, then boarded the ship. However, without realizing it, a mysterious figure also boarded. Meanwhile, Zen began to notice that some people were interested in Shirayuki's hair and planned to profit from it. Annoyed, he drew his sword and made it clear that he would not tolerate such ideas. Meanwhile, Shirayuki had already arrived at her destination and began her search for more knowledge. However, she was surprised by an attack. At the same time, Zen, who was training, realized that it was already night and ran to look for her. What he didn't know was that Shirayuki had been captured and was trapped in a cave. Trying to understand the situation, she asked her captor why she had been imprisoned. The boy who was holding her captive revealed his intention to sell her for a large sum of money, taking advantage of her unique features. Zen quickly arrived at Shirayuki's house, anxious to find her. But upon arriving, he was surprised to hear the news that she had been missing since morning. Without wasting time, he immediately set out to look for her. Meanwhile, Shirayuki managed to escape the trap prepared by the boy who had captured her. After freeing herself, she realized that she was still trapped in the mansion, as he still had the key. Determined to leave, she grabbed an explosive from her bag and launched an attack against her captor. Even so, a mysterious boy tried to grab her tightly, preventing her from escaping. But before anything worse could happen, Zen appeared just in time to intervene in the confrontation. The boy was seriously injured and collapsed before Zen, revealing his story. He had always lived in that mansion, but his family was in ruins, leaving him defenseless on the streets. With no alternatives, he took desperate measures to try to regain the life he once had. Zen listened to the account but maintained an impassive expression. He warned the boy never to approach Shirayuki again. The boy then asked Zen's name, and upon discovering that he was the second prince of Clarines, he was completely shocked. Shortly after, the guards took him away, leaving Shirayuki alone. She explained that the boy had no connection with bandits, and assured she would be more cautious to avoid similar situations in the future. While she was speaking, she noticed Zen seemed distracted, which bothered her. She asked directly if he was listening, and Zen replied that he was simply lost in thought. He assured her that he really cared about her. That was when Shirayuki revealed her decision to remain in the country to learn more about the matter, and also to understand Zen's life better. The next morning upon waking, Shirayuki prepared to start the day. That was when she noticed the form the merchant had given her. Without delay, she went to find Zen, and encountered his two guards. As she approached, she saw a man at the gate showing a special item to gain entry. One of the guards explained it was a special metal that allowed strangers access to the castle. However, Shirayuki did not need this item, as she had direct permission from the prince to come and go freely. At the same time, a man approached requesting a meeting, but the guards stopped him, saying the prince was busy. The man became irritated with the refusal and ignored the guards, advancing anyway. However, he soon noticed Shirayuki and deduced that the guards were referring to her. To him, it was inappropriate for a commoner to take up so much of the prince's time. Meanwhile, Shirayuki was speaking with Miha and discovered that since her last meeting with Zen, he had locked himself in his room, apparently disturbed by something. Determined to see him, she went there without hesitation. When she entered, she found him visibly exhausted, but his expression changed upon seeing her. He told his friends to leave, leaving them alone. During the conversation, Shirayuki noticed that Zen was working tirelessly to be a worthy prince who could make his kingdom proud. He was so exhausted he nearly fell asleep right there. Shirayuki then sat beside him and comforted him. Meanwhile, a mysterious figure was watching them through the window. Later, when Zen woke up, he found that Shirayuki had already gone home. Amid everything that was happening, the same man who had previously complained about Shirayuki returned to insist that Zen should distance himself from her. He argued that a relationship with a commoner could damage the prince's image. Zen, however, rejected this idea, stating that if the man knew Shirayuki better, his opinion would change. But the man refused to listen and left, only to later meet with a mysterious man to whom he gave a task. Before leaving the next day, this same mysterious man approached one of the guards, claiming that the prince himself had ordered Shirayuki's rejection. Unaware of this, Shirayuki arrived and overheard the conversation, quickly running to find Zen and clarify the truth. No matter what happened, she needed to hear it from him. As she ran, the mysterious man noticed her and began to follow her. During her run, Shirayuki bumped into some guards, but they did not stop her, which reassured her, as it indicated Zen had not given such an order. However, just as she was about to reach the prince's quarters, an arrow landed right in front of her, blocking her path. A note attached to the arrow ordered her not to proceed. Shirayuki ignored the warning and continued, surprising the mysterious man, who prepared for another attack. Before he could act, Zen appeared before her, and Shirayuki, distressed, calmed him down. Upon understanding the situation, Zen became furious with the person responsible. Shirayuki, however, managed to calm him down. Later, she wondered who could be behind all of it. That's when the man reappeared, scolding her for being there without permission. His words made Shirayuki realize he was involved in everything. The tension rose when the man drew his sword and ordered her to leave. But instead of backing down, Shirayuki stepped forward, showing determination. The mysterious man, impressed by her courage, began to clap. When Shirayuki asked who he was, he revealed that he was the one responsible for the attack on her, and that it was all part of his plan. However, realizing that Shirayuki was not an ordinary girl, the man admitted his involvement in the scheme. Upon hearing the conversation, Zen intervened, warning the mysterious man that if he came near Shirayuki again, there would be consequences. The man accepted the warning and left. Zen then ordered his allies to keep an eye on him. Shirayuki spent some time with Ryu, talking about her exam, while Zen worried about her health, since she had been sleeping very little since the assessment was announced. When the exam began, Shirayuki noticed that something was wrong with the water used to irrigate the plants. Determined to solve the problem, she found the source of the contamination, and, with Zen's help, managed to save the plants. The head herbalist, impressed, praised her skill and dedication. Zen firmly stated that he wanted Shirayuki to advance on her own merits. Impressed by her determination, the head herbalist revealed that he had placed that plant there on purpose because he wanted to test whether the candidates could handle the exam properly. Due to her exemplary actions, Shirayuki passed and was assigned to work under Ryu's supervision. When she met Ryu, she respectfully called him Sir, but he quickly interrupted, asking her to call him by his name. Later, both were assigned to treat a prince, but the young man refused Ryu's treatment, and they respected his choice. Ryu ended up feeling bad, as he feared that Shirayuki might be disappointed in him. Meanwhile, Zen noticed his friend's expression and approached to talk. Upon understanding the situation, Zen reassured Ryu that he was wrong to think that Shirayuki might be upset, as she would never be angry with him. Meanwhile, Shirayuki focused on her work when Chief Garrick approached and handed her some notes. The content of these records detailed all the illnesses and poisonings that Zen had faced over the years. As she read, Shirayuki became deeply shaken, shedding tears as she realized how many health challenges Zen had endured. Ryu noticed her state and, concerned, rushed to inform Zen, who was busy training. Without hesitation, he then went to Shirayuki, and seeing her crying, he understood that she had discovered his medical history. Gently, he enveloped her in a comforting embrace, promising that as long as he lived, he would always be by her side. At another moment, Ryo still seemed down, until Shirayuki approached, after hearing Kiki and Mitsui explain the reason for his sadness. Upon realizing how much he cared for her, Shirayuki felt touched and reassured him, which made her happy, as she could comfort him. After that, she and Zen had a long conversation. The next day, Zen and his companions left for another city to gather information, as they had received concerning news about a nearby castle. Shirayuki also accompanied them, as she needed to collect data on medicinal herbs from a nearby village. Once they arrived, Shirayuki went on her own path while Zen and the others went to the castle. There, they met a boy who warned them about a curse that caused all the inhabitants to fall ill. The boy informed them of the risks, but determined to help, he instructed Obi to enter and investigate. However, upon seeing the number of sick people inside the castle, Rin decided to advance further, even with Obi and Kiki trying to stop him. Kiki, assessing the situation, suggested that Shirayuki be called, as she might provide more information. Following Zen's orders, Mitsu went to get her. As soon as she arrived, she began treating the sick boy. While gathering information, Shirayuki discovered that he had not fallen ill because he spent most of his time outside, taking care of others. With this, she concluded that the origin of the disease was inside the castle. As she prepared to investigate, Zen insisted on accompanying her, but she refused, fearing he might get sick. Still, he insisted, until Mitsu intervened, reminding him that he needed to trust Shirayuki. Though hesitant, he accepted the advice and tried to calm down. While exploring the castle, Shirayuki noticed something strange in a bonfire, where sticks were burning. Upon closer inspection, she realized that there was something wrong with the wood. Once she stepped out, she showed the sticks to Zen, explaining that they were the cause of the illness, as they were consuming the oxygen in the environment, leaving the soldiers severely weakened. The boy, terrified, confessed that he had received the sticks from some strangers, indicating that someone had planned this incident. Determined to find the culprits, Zen ordered Obi to begin an investigation. Meanwhile, Shirayuki helped the boy prepare food and noticed how grateful everyone was for her help. The boy asked if Zen would visit them again as he used to, as his absence had saddened the villagers. Shirayuki assured him that, from now on, he would visit more frequently. Outside, people began recovering, while Obi continued his investigation. But when he noticed that Shirayuki was about to faint from exhaustion, he ran to catch her. Later, Zen, along with his soldiers, prepared to confront the ones responsible for the incident. Upon returning to the castle, he found Shirayuki exhausted from working non-stop. Kindly, he suggested that she rest, and she, trusting his words, accepted. After Shirayuki fell asleep, the soldiers set off to capture the culprits and punish them accordingly. Later, upon waking, Shirayuki saw Zen in front of her. He told her that from now on, he would take better care of her. This moment further strengthened their bond. The next day, Shirayuki and the others began their journey back. As soon as they arrived, the head herbalist, knowing everything she had done, ordered Shirayuki to take a few days off to rest. She accepted and went directly to the castle, where, as expected, she found Zen. He was happy to see her more rested, but when he told her that he would be busy in the coming days and could not see her, she became visibly disappointed and distanced herself without saying much. Meanwhile, Obi relaxed, sitting under a tree, when suddenly a stone was thrown at him. Intrigued, he began to wonder who could have done that. At the same time, Rin and his friends noticed that something strange was happening in the castle. Some soldiers were acting unusually, and when they tried to prevent them from entering, he became upset. Later, he discovered that they had been ordered to keep him away. Frustrated, he had no choice but to obey. Returning to his room, he called Obi to get information, but even he did not know what was going on. Amid all the confusion, a soldier brought a letter to Zen, and upon reading it, he finally began to understand the situation. Zen observed everything and felt a great frustration growing inside him. Meanwhile, some soldiers approached Shirayuki with a respectful tone, asking her to follow them to see the prince. Without hesitation, she agreed to follow them. Soon after, Zen also received a summons to present himself to the prince, who, to his surprise, was none other than his older brother recently returned to the castle. Upon seeing his brother, Zen wasted no time questioning why he had returned without notifying him. The conversation between them unfolded, and Shirayuki, positioned behind a curtain, listened attentively. Zen's older brother explained that his return had been unexpected because he wished to assess how Zen was managing the castle in his absence. After observing the situation, he became angry, convinced that Zen was not properly managing the castle despite his younger brother's efforts. When the king reunited with Zen, his expression indicated some unease, but he still greeted him with respect. Through Kiki, it was clear that Zen suspected his brother had some hidden agenda in summoning the king to the castle. However, the older brother, Zinen, approached and began a serious conversation with him. Shirayuki and Obi, who were nearby, listened intently. The mention of Shirayuki possibly being taken elsewhere deeply shook Kane. Realizing that the discussion revolved around her, he panicked, knowing Zen would never allow such a thing. To avoid conflict, the king denied any emotional involvement with Shirayuki. To reinforce his position, he claimed that she was actually Zen's fiancée. This statement took everyone by surprise. Zen, stunned by what he had just heard, grabbed the king by the arm and pulled him aside for a private conversation, demanding an explanation for this absurd claim. The king in turn revealed that had he not said that, he would have had no choice but to allow Shirayuki to be taken. Furthermore, he made it clear that if Zen truly had no feelings for her, there would be no reason for her to stay in the castle. However, for Zen, this option was unthinkable. Reluctantly, he declared that he would not allow Shirayuki to be taken anywhere. These words echoed in Zen's mind, leading him to reflect on his true feelings for Shirayuki. After the party ended, Shirayuki also felt uneasy. The fear that she might be forced to leave haunted her. Upon spotting Zen, she felt an urge to talk to him, but fear kept her from approaching. Despite this, her desire to stay by his side was unwavering. Hesitant, she remembered Zen's words, that she could always seek him out whenever she wished. Gathering courage, she decided to find him. However, upon arriving at the location, he realized that he had already left. It was then that he heard a voice calling for her. When she lifted her gaze, she saw him standing in front of her, clearly surprised by her presence. Without hesitation, she climbed the nearby tree to join Zini. Without thinking twice, she hugged him tightly, and with a voice full of emotion, she declared that she didn't want to leave, no way, and that she wished to stay by his side. Zen, in turn, reassured her, assuring that he would resolve the situation, and that, regardless of what her brother tried, he would not allow Shirayuki to be taken. He then asked her to listen to his older brother's story, and Shirayuki agreed. Zen began recounting how he had grown up in the shadow of his brother. He told her that one day, his older brother decided to build a castle and announced it publicly. Kings from other realms began to gift him generously, trying to win his favor. During this time, two men approached Zen's brother and reported that the king of their land was exploiting the people, charging excessive taxes, and leaving them in miserable conditions. Zen was surprised when his brother didn't react to the complaint. Still confused, Zen warned that one of the kings who had been showering him with gifts had already fallen due to exploiting his own people, leading his kingdom to ruin. Zen's brother replied that the same fate awaited the other king. Soon after, he took Zen to see the castle under construction. On the way, they visited a second king, whom Zen's brother directly questioned, asking if he had not hesitated to overburden his own people to please him. The king didn't understand the situation until he was suddenly dethroned. The two men who had denounced the situation were appointed to govern the kingdom, and the money that had been taken from the people began to be used for their welfare. It was at this moment that Zen realized that, despite his severe appearance, his brother had a good heart. The final advice he received from him was not to live in the shadow of others, but rather to carve his own path and build his own reputation. While walking alongside Shirayuki, Zen didn't tell her about the conversation he had with his brother, including the part where the king referred to her as his fiancée. To Zen's surprise, Shirayuki didn't seem very concerned with this matter. She had already decided for herself that she would stay by his side, no matter what. Calmness took over her, and any insecurity she had felt before dissipated. Later, some guards were debating whether the rumor about Shirayuki being the king's fiancée was true. Meanwhile, the king was still wandering the castle, and many feared that he would try to find Shirayuki again. Zen, for his part, was looking for his brother and asked Obi if he knew where he was, but Obi had no information. On the other hand, King Rai began to feel sharp stomach pains, something his guards quickly noticed. Shirayuki, in turn, was busy with her tasks, and Ru noticed how happy she seemed. Later, Zen finally found his brother and asked to speak with him privately. At first, his brother refused, but eventually agreed. During their conversation while practicing sword fighting, Zen asked why his brother was so concerned about Shirayuki. His brother replied that being with Shirayuki would make Zen weaker, and that even if they stayed together, she wouldn't bring him any benefits. Zen, however, replied with conviction, saying that his brother underestimated Shirayuki and that she was much more than she appeared. In another moment, Shirayuki encountered King Rai, suffering from pain, and without hesitation, she offered him medicine. Rai, intrigued, asked Shirayuki why she was helping him, even after everything that had happened. With this question in mind, he decided he needed to speak with her again. Shirayuki thought for a moment, and then expressed that she would only speak to a prince who truly cared about her. She reflected, wondering if he would once again suggest that she leave the country. Shirayuki didn't hesitate for a second in rejecting the prince's gesture, which surprised him. After a moment of silence, Zen approached her and kissed her gently on the forehead. Later, we see that Rai was preparing to return to his country. All the princes gathered to bid him farewell before his departure. The next day, Lin became increasingly worried about Shirayuki, especially after everything that had happened lately. He knew he needed to take action to ensure her safety. He gathered his friends to discuss the matter, and that was when he decided that Obi would be Shirayuki's personal bodyguard. Obi accepted the mission without hesitation, and Kiki took him to where Shirayuki was. When Shirayuki learned that Obi would become her bodyguard, she was surprised. Kiki explained the situation and mentioned that, if she didn't want it, she could cancel the agreement. But Obi knew that if he didn't accept this responsibility, Zen would be very upset with him. In the end, Shirayuki accepted the idea, though she felt that it would somehow affect her. Meanwhile, Obi, always concerned about the situation, asked Shirayuki why she couldn't get close to Zen since she was just a commoner. He suggested that she should try to forget the prince, which didn't sit well with Shirayuki at all. She reprimanded him firmly, saying that he shouldn't repeat such words. At that moment, Obi realized what he was doing, seeing Shirayuki as someone truly special. The two then visited the chief herbalist, who had already prepared a drink for them. The man invited them to try it, and both Obi and Shirayuki accepted. However, the herbalist revealed that this drink was no ordinary thing. Obi was excited by the news, but Shirayuki began to feel unwell shortly after drinking. Meanwhile, Zen was lost in his thoughts, recalling his childhood. He remembered when his brother had introduced him to Mitsu, who was supposed to be his caretaker, while Zen wasn't around. Zen didn't like how Mitsu appeared to be more focused on his work than being his friend. They even played together for a while, but when Mitsu appeared, the boy Zen had been playing with had already disappeared. When Mitsu questioned Zen about the boy, he responded dismissively, which irritated Mitsu a little. Zen quickly realized his mistake and apologized. But Mitsu began to suspect the boy. The next time Zen played with him, the boy revealed that he was moving away from the castle and wouldn't be able to see Zen anymore. Zen promised to sneak out at night to meet him, but Mitsu, who had overheard everything, wasn't convinced and became worried. After sharing his concerns with others, Mitsu discovered that the boy actually worked as a night watchman. When Zen went out to meet the boy, he found himself surrounded by bandits. It became clear to Zen that his friend had lured him into a trap. The bandits demanded that Zen call his brother to save him, and Zen, with no other choice, obeyed. Soon, his brother arrived, and the bandits revealed that they had killed his entire family in search of revenge. Zen's brother, however, remained calm, and explained that his family had also been a group of bandits who caused suffering to many people. He didn't regret having destroyed those bandits. The boy, who was caught in the middle of it all, revealed that he didn't want to do any of that, but felt pressured by his family situation at that moment. Mitsu noticed how much Zen had faced in life and began to develop a true friendship with him. Their bond grew and strengthened, becoming one of the strongest Zen would ever have. The next day, Shirayuki was still feeling the effects of the alcohol. She distanced herself, becoming lost in thought, until Obi appeared to ask if she was all right. Shirayuki didn't respond, just moved away. Concerned, Obi followed her, while Kiki went to the chief herbalist to investigate what had happened. Kiki discovered that Shirayuki had ingested some alcohol, which explained her condition. Kiki also found a letter in Shirayuki's room, written to Zen. Meanwhile, when the girl began to question why Shirayuki kept distancing herself from him, Obi followed and confronted her, asking how she felt about getting closer to Zen. Shirayuki explained that her greatest fear was that, by getting involved with him, she would cause problems, especially since the people around her were beginning to notice. She feared being an obstacle to Zen, someone with such a great destiny. While they talked, Zen, who had been nearby, entered the room and saw Shirayuki resting. He gently caressed her face and watched her fall asleep. After some time, Zen and Obi discussed the situation. Zen expressed his satisfaction with Obi's work and officially recognized him as someone he trusted. However, Obi, with a question on his mind, asked why Zen was keeping his involvement with Shirayuki a secret from others. Zen explained that he fully trusted Obi and thus wanted to keep it between them. Shirayuki, who was observing the sky, became distracted by a beautiful bird flying by. The bird was drawn to a girl's whistle, and Shirayuki, intrigued, approached her to learn more. The girl revealed that the bird was her special companion and always responded to her signals. The conversation continued as the girl explained that there were many birds of the same species, all treated as special companions. Shirayuki wanted to learn more, but the girl had many tasks to attend to. Root, seeing the situation, offered to take over Shirayuki's work so she could continue talking. During the conversation, Obi learned that the girl was from the South Island, where the birds of that species were found. Unfortunately, they were being hunted by the military. The girl explained that she wasn't part of the hunting, but still felt bad about the situation. Zen, interested in helping, offered to deal with the problem, explaining that the area was under military control and the person responsible for it was a military man. However, when the military man heard the girl's request, he laughed, saying he couldn't help her. The girl, disappointed, walked away. Zen stayed and pondered the situation, considering what he could do about the birds in the island. When Shirayuki arrived, a young girl from the tribe approached Zen, curious to know if the birds from the island could be trained to travel and follow commands, just like the girl's bird. However, the girl didn't refer to this directly. Instead, she mentioned the birds she had as if it were something ordinary, and suggested that Zen think about how to use them. The conversation between her and Shirayuki soon unfolded, and the girl suggested that Shirayuki could be her assistant. After some time, it became clear that a test needed to be conducted. She explained that the bird would need to fly from the castle to a distant tower, retrieve a letter, and return with it. If the bird completed the task successfully, the test would be considered a success. As everyone prepared for the challenge, Shirayuki positioned herself in a secluded spot, ready to use her whistle to call the bird back if needed. It was then that, at the suggestion of one of the guards, she climbed to the roof and saw that the military man was already there, seemingly planning something. He approached Shirayuki and made a proposal, offering a generous reward in exchange for her help. However, Shirayuki firmly refused, not wanting to get involved with him. Furious at her refusal, the man, in an act of revenge, ripped the whistle from her neck and threw it into the water, attempting to sabotage the mission. Determined not to let the mission fail, Shirayuki jumped into the water to retrieve the whistle. Obi, seeing the situation, rushed to help her, and together they managed to recover the whistle and continue with the mission. When the bird completed the task and returned with the letter, everyone celebrated the success of the mission. Zen was informed by one of his guards about what had happened with Shirayuki. Worried, he immediately went to meet her. When he arrived, he saw the military man being arrested. Realizing the situation, he apologized, embarrassed about what had happened. Shirayuki, on the other hand, was so shocked that she could barely react as the military man was taken away in handcuffs. Zen decided that, to make up for the incident, he would escort the girl from the tribe back to her island, with the help of his friends. During the journey, Obi and the others began to notice that Shirayuki was acting differently since her last conversation with Zen, clearly affected by what had happened between them. Obi, noticing Shirayuki's unusual behavior, asked her what was going on, but she simply moved away without giving any explanations. Later, Zen arrived at the island and met with the village chief. The chief was surprised by Zen's visit, but Zen revealed that he wanted to use the tribe's birds for communication purposes and needed permission to do so. Initially skeptical, the chief thought Zen was just talking nonsense, but Zen was willing to offer a considerable sum to ensure the chief's cooperation. Surprisingly, the chief agreed to the proposal, and this changed his view of Zen. He now saw Zen with new eyes and recognized his sincerity. The rest of the village also began to see that Zen was serious, and this generated a sense of satisfaction among the people. A great celebration was organized, and many children, excited to meet a prince for the first time, came to greet him. While the party was happening, the chief approached the young girl from the tribe and, with a smile, admitted that he had always thought all princes were the same. However, after meeting Zen, he began to see in him hope for the future of his people. Meanwhile, Mitsu noticed that Zen had stepped away from the celebration and went to find him. When he finally found Zen, he was relaxing and enjoying the fresh air. During their conversation, Mitsu brought up the recent events between Zen and Shirayuki, surprising Zen. However, Zen maintained his trust, believing that Shirayuki might also have feelings for him. Meanwhile, Shirayuki was preparing a drink for the chief herbalist of the village, who wasn't feeling well. When offering the drink for him to approve, he made a face, as the taste was horrible. Obi, with a smile, suggested she add some sweet fruit to the mixture to improve the flavor. Shirayuki followed the advice, and the drink became much more pleasant. The chief herbalist then quickly improved after drinking it. Shirayuki then said that she wanted to enter the forest, and Obi, always willing to accompany her, decided to go with her. It was then that Zen appeared, clearly wanting to talk to Shirayuki. However, she avoided making eye contact with him. Obi, noticing what was happening, suggested that Shirayuki go to the forest alone to give her some space. Surprisingly, Anne decided to follow her as well. In the forest, he and Shirayuki started a conversation that soon became deeper. The conversation eventually turned to the kiss they had shared, and Shirayuki, a bit hesitant, confessed that she was starting to develop feelings for Zen. However, she also knew that their relationship might not be possible due to the difference in status between them. Zen, for his part, expressed his feelings without hesitation, telling Shirayuki that, regardless of what she thought, he had already given his heart to her. He promised to take care of her in every way he could. Zen then remembered a previous conversation with Mitsu, where he had asked if he would ever find someone who truly understood his heart. After these words, he kissed Shirayuki again. When the two returned from the forest, those who saw them quickly realized what had happened between them. Soon after, the group gathered to explore the festival, visiting various stalls. During this walk, Obi noticed that Shirayuki was trying to hide her hair, clearly embarrassed. Kikiya then took her for a little more sightseeing. During their conversation, Kikiya asked if Shirayuki had accepted Zen's proposal, to which she responded simply. After chatting, they both returned to Isen, but upon arrival, Chuki noticed that Obi was missing. Later, they discovered that Obi had been involved in a fight with a local group, easily defeating them. He then returned with a gift for Shirayuki. Mitsu and Zen praised his fighting skills, but soon Zen had to leave to give a speech. After saying goodbye to everyone, Obi approached Shirayuki and put a hairpin in her hair as a gift. When Zen and his brother began their speeches, a large crowd gathered to listen. Once Zen finished his duties, he noticed that Rue was running somewhere. He explained that one of the actresses in the play had been injured and he was going to check on her. Upon seeing Shirayuki's red hair, the play's manager suggested that she act in place of the injured girl. Surprised by the offer, Shirayuki hesitated for a moment, but then agreed and began preparing for the performance. Meanwhile, the manager gave secret instructions to another actor, asking him to let Shirayuki's hair down during the play so that everyone would see it when it started. Zen arrived just in time to prevent the situation from escalating. After the performance, the injured actress apologized to Shirayuki, explaining that she hadn't known about the manager's actions and felt regretful for what happened. Once the tension had eased, Shirayuki and Zen managed to find a moment to talk privately. Zen noticed the hairpin in Shirayuki's hair and asked about it. Shirayuki explained that Obi had given it to her. Zen made a positive comment about the pin, then asked Shirayuki if her red hair had always been a bother to her. Shirayuki responded that her cousin, who also had red hair, had once told her to become strong in life so that no one could take advantage of her. As they continued talking, the sound of fireworks interrupted them, and they decided to go see the display outside. Everyone gathered to enjoy the fireworks, celebrating the moment. The scene then shifted and we saw a man walking towards Zen's castle. It was Mahia, the man Zen had previously sent to prison for attempting to kidnap Shirayuki. Now he was there to meet Zen for some reason. The next day, Shirayuki was busy, as always, with her work. During this time, she went out for an inspection. The chief herbalist was very pleased with her work, as Shirayuki had been of great help in recent days. She inspected a plant stem that had been infected by insect bites. After checking the plant, Shirayuki left, and we saw Ryo sitting in a corner writing something. However, a sudden gust of wind blew his papers into a tree. Ryo tried to reach them but couldn't. At that moment, Obi appeared and, seeing the situation, agreed to help. Obi began guiding Ryo around the area, trying to recover the papers. Meanwhile, on the other side of the castle, the young prince was working hard. Mahia and Kiki could clearly see how determined he was to work harder to prove he was just as diligent as Shirayuki. But this effort resulted in a small injury to his hand. Mitsu, concerned, suggested he go to the infirmary, but he initially refused. However, when Kiki mentioned that she needed to see Shirayuki, he agreed to go with her. Shortly after, Obi dropped Ryo off in his room, and only then did Shirayuki arrive with her inspection list. She handed the list to Ryo, who noticed something was missing. He told Shirayuki to correct the list and return it. Later, when she left, Obi was about to leave the place, but Ryo called him over and handed him a seed, explaining that it would become something important. Obi, surprised, accepted the seed, knowing it had been given to him with care by Ryo. A little later, Obi went to Tyson to return the seed, explaining that it hadn't been very useful to him. Ryo then explained that the seed was special because it grew easily. He told Obi that it was given with all his heart. Meanwhile, Shirayuki was talking to Obi and mentioned that she was collecting seeds, but hadn't found any blue ones yet. Obi heard everything, but decided not to give her the seed because Ryo had given it to him with such care. At that moment, Mitsukai appeared to inform Shirayuki that Zen was calling for her. The scene then cut to Zen, who was clearly angry. We discovered that Zen had learned that Mahia had come to his castle and wanted to speak with Shirayuki. Upon hearing Mahia's name, Shirayuki was a bit surprised, but eventually agreed to meet him. When she met Mahia, he revealed that he had been looking for a girl with red hair, and that girl was actually Shirayuki. She was staying at Zen's castle. Zen was furious upon hearing this, because Mahia had revealed Shirayuki's location to an unknown child. Zen demanded that Mahia tell him more about the child and his motives. Mahia then asked for money in exchange for the information, which made Zen even angrier. He forced Mahia to reveal everything he knew. But despite that, they didn't learn much about the child. Mahia suggested that he could go back and talk to the child, but Zen found this idea unacceptable and ordered his brothers to guard him. Zen's brothers, who were not surprised by his decision, then revealed to Shirayuki that Prince Ria had invited her to his kingdom. The invitation was meant to strengthen the ties between the two kingdoms. Zen approved the visit, but she would also need to prepare for Rai's festival and spend a week with Rai. Though hesitant, Shirayuki couldn't refuse. However, Anne decided he would go with her. Yet, her brother firmly prohibited his presence, explaining that it wouldn't be appropriate. In the end, Ren, with no other options, made a request. Although he couldn't go personally, he would send one of his men to accompany her as a guard. Right after, he instructed Mitsukai to be the guard for Shirayuki. Oi, who had been listening to everything, clearly wanted to be the only one to protect Shirayuki. Later, Shirayuki went to her room, reflecting on how she could refuse the invitation, but she felt sad for not being able to. The next day, Obi, at the request of the chief herbalist, went to look for Shirayuki. He found her practicing dance, but it seemed her teacher was struggling to keep up with her. Obi was surprised by the situation and told Shirayuki that he would investigate more about the child they had mentioned earlier. Shirayuki offered to accompany him, but Obi reminded her that she needed to focus on her dance to do well at the event. He then handed her a book given by the chief herbalist and left. Meanwhile, R was lost in his thoughts, worried about the potential danger the child might pose to Shirayuki. Obi, in turn, met with some guards and instructed them to keep a close watch on the child and report any relevant information. Mahia was present and tried to incite Obi against Prince Zen, but Obi firmly warned her not to speak ill of his master again. As Zen reflected on everything, he felt a little depressed, as he still knew nothing about the child and what that meant for Shirayuki. That night, Obi was returning to the castle, and on the way, he noticed Kiki and Mitsukai walking together. As he approached, he learned they were going to see Zen, who had not yet returned to his room. Obi joined them, and soon after, they all found Zen practicing combat alone. The moment concern took over him, Obi stepped forward and challenged Zen to a sparring match. He proposed a wager. If he won, Ren would have to travel with Shirayuki instead of Mitsu. Shortly after the fight between Obi and Zen began, at first, Ren had the upper hand. But in the end, thanks to his skills with the katana, Obi managed to defeat Zen. Zen, somewhat surprised, accepted the outcome, which fortunately made the new guard of Yuk a little more at ease. The next day arrived, and the carriage for Shirayuki's journey was already ready. Obi appeared and revealed that he would be the one traveling with her. Shortly after, Lord arrived to escort Shirayuki to the castle gates. During this moment, they noticed Oi, who was scheduled to accompany Shirayuki. Oi was surprised to see that Lord himself would come with them to the castle gates. When Zen and his friends arrived, and before Shirayuki departed, she asked Zen to give her something special so she could keep it close. Zen then handed her his watch, which Shirayuki kept with great care. Zen's brother had also arrived and was waiting, watching as Shirayuki departed. Zen approached him, curious about why he had the courage to come personally. Zen's brother explained that he wanted Zen to be disturbed and gave him some advice. When Shirayuki returned, there should not be a single tear in Zen's eyes. After a smooth journey, Shirayuki and Lord said their goodbyes and continued on their way. Soon after, as they passed through the gates, Shirayuki's eyes met Rai, who was standing in front of her. Surprisingly, Rai greeted her with a smile and accompanied her back into the castle. Shortly after, Shirayuki and Obi were facing Hai. Despite Rai seeming a bit nervous in Shirayuki's presence, he tried to understand the reason for her visit. Over time, Shirayuki, while drinking tea with Rai, tried to converse with him, but he seemed not to care much. He responded briefly and interrupted conversations quickly, leaving Shirayuki a little frustrated. She decided to go outside to get some fresh air. Meanwhile, outside, Shirayuki was observing her homeland when Obi approached her and started a conversation about her home. Through this, he learned that Shirayuki had lived in the mountains during her childhood. Later, her grandparents moved to the city. At that moment, Rai appeared and decided to show Shirayuki around his castle. Shirayuki, curious, accepted the invitation and joined him. They began the tour, heading toward the greenhouse. To get there, Rai guided them through a dark cave. Along the way, Obi asked Rai if he really knew the way to the greenhouse. Rai confidently replied that he knew the way very well. However, soon after, they were attacked by arrows. Obi quickly reacted in time to protect them. It was at that moment that Rai remembered he had placed traps in the area. As they continued, Rai realized he had forgotten some details, like the fact that Shirayuki's brothers were standing by, waiting to encourage him to move forward. Meanwhile, Ren had learned that the girl from the tribe had gone to his castle looking for Shirayuki. But as Shirayuki was out due to work, Ren approached the girl. She handed him a pendant, asking him to give it to Shirayuki. Ren promised he would do so. Mitsu, noticing Zen's brother watching the situation from a distance, went over to him and asked if he was doing all of this to test Zen. Zen's brother admitted that he was doing this because he wanted to see how far Zen would go for Shirayuki. While Rai and Shirayuki were still lost, Obi noticed that someone was secretly watching them. It was two children trying to trap Obi, but their plan quickly failed as Obi caught them with ease. In the end, Obi brought the two children to Hai. After a brief conversation, Shirayuki discovered that the children were actually Rai's siblings. When Obi asked if the children knew the way to the greenhouse, they confirmed it. The two children then guided them to the location. Along the way, Hai thanked Shirayuki, as she had just explained that she was not there just to become his friend, but also to help strengthen the bond between their two kingdoms. When they finally arrived at the greenhouse, Shirayuki eagerly explored the area, while Rai's siblings approached him and began discussing Shirayuki. They encouraged him to approach her, but Rai rejected the suggestion, saying there was no need to worry so much about Shirayuki, since she would leave in a few days. Hai approached Obi and asked him to express his gratitude to Shirayuki on his behalf, acknowledging all the help she had offered up to that point. Meanwhile, Ren tried to understand what Maid was discussing with her brother, who revealed that it was just a normal conversation. It was then that Kiki entered the room, bringing both good and bad news. The good news was that their team had successfully found the child they were looking for. The bad news, however, was that the child had managed to escape right before their eyes. Rai was dealing with his own feelings, especially his concern about spending more time with Shui. He couldn't stop thinking about how he would do it. After reflecting for a while the next day, he had an idea. Rai decided to go to the castle library with the intention of surprising everyone, especially Shui. No one expected him, usually so distant from books, to suddenly be interested in reading. But his younger sister, more observant, quickly realized that the reason behind Rai's interest was quite different. She quickly deduced that he was in love, and that's why he was acting so strangely. Soon, Shirayuki and Obi decided to go to the library to speak with Hai, to everyone's surprise. They spent the whole day there reading together, trying to hide his nervousness, pretending that this was a habit of his, as if he were someone who truly spent all his time there, even though everyone knew that wasn't the case. The next day, Rin insisted on continuing to pretend that he was studying in the library, But he was also trying to understand what Shirayuki thought about their relationship, though she didn't quite know how to respond. To disguise the awkward atmosphere, R tried to keep the conversation flowing naturally. Meanwhile, Rai's brothers were watching them from a distance, observing the situation, and deciding that it would be best to keep Shirayuki as close to Rai as possible, attempting to bring them even closer together. However, Obi, overhearing their conversation, quickly intervened, saying that they couldn't just keep Shirayuki in the castle, as she lived elsewhere. The moment he realized it, he figured out who was behind it. He tried to hide Shirayuki, but the leader of the crew of Deck, a pirate woman, appeared and revealed her plan to sell her to a noble for a large sum. She mentioned that she had been following Kazuki for days just to capture Shirayuki. Threatening Shirayuki, the pirate said that she could never return home, leaving Shirayuki completely confused about the situation. Kuki decided she needed to escape, and with a new determination noticed that the door outside was open. Shirayuki, seizing the opportunity, cut a piece of her clothing to prepare to follow him. But just as they were almost ready to leave, thick black smoke filled the room, trapping them once again in a more confined space. Meanwhile, Obi arrived, accompanied by Kazuki's friend, searching for Zen. Their leader Zen was preparing to move forward with his mission, but when he found the broken watch that belonged to Shirayuki, he became pensive and sad, remembering her situation. Mitsuki, seeing Zen's state, lightly patted him on the back, trying to bring him back to reality. Mia, who had been watching everything, was surprised by what was happening, but ironically said that if Zen punished Mitsu later, he would probably regret it. The group suspected that the gang that had kidnapped Kazuki and Shirayuki was nearby, so they needed to act quickly. Obi was determined to find them and save Shirayuki. However, while tracking them, he noticed a bird flying in the sky, and at that moment, Zen arrived. Obi, seeing Zen, immediately apologized for not being able to prevent Shirayuki's kidnapping. Zen, in turn, reassured him, saying that he wasn't angry with him, and that the most important thing now was to focus on finding Shirayuki. Obi then explained that those responsible for the kidnapping were people from the mountains, and that the leader of the group was trying to protect them. Kazuki's friend then revealed that the group known as the Sea Trackers had kidnapped Kazuki and Shirayuki. The reason, according to him, was to protect Shirayuki and take her to a safe place. Furthermore, Kuki, who had been enslaved from a young age, was now trying to rescue others in the same situation. Upon learning that a prince wanted to keep Shirayuki close because of her red hair, Kazuki made the decision to rescue her after hearing all of this. Enen and the others realized that the intentions of the mountain people were good and that they were actually trying to protect Shirayuki. With that, everyone agreed to join them in the search. They soon received information that some people had seen Kazuki being taken to a ship. Now, in their group, they faced the challenge of rescuing Kazuki and Shirayuki from the ship, but without knowing how to do so, Kuki came up with an idea. Meanwhile, elsewhere, the pirate who had kidnapped Kazuki was preparing the ship. When the ship began to depart, Shirayuki and Kazuki became alarmed. The pirate locked both of them inside the ship and revealed that this would be their final destination before handing them over to a noble. Kazuki was emotionally shattered, but Shirayuki tried to reassure him, saying they would escape soon. However, as the ship set sail, they both began to realize they were in a hopeless situation. Shirayuki, with tears in her eyes, observed the situation with a mix of despair and hope. Inside the cell, Shirayuki was surprised to see that the new prisoner was none other than Kiki, who was also locked up. Kiki revealed that Zen's group, with her help, had planned a rescue operation, which relieved Shirayuki. Kiki also showed Shirayuki a pendant, a gift from a tribe she had visited, which had the ability to summon birds. These birds would be used by Zen and his allies to track them and help them escape. Meanwhile, on the ship, two guards began announcing that Prince Rai was arriving, which caused surprise among the prisoners. Rai, with some hesitation, remembered the trust Zen had placed in him, and this gave him the courage to face the crowd and approach Shirayuki. He then asked everyone to help him search for her. Zen, who fully trusted Rai, was relieved to see his attitude. Later, when Shirayuki was being escorted by two guards, she looked up at the sky and saw a bird flying above. She felt a wave of relief, knowing that Zen was coming to rescue her. The pirate girl, noticing the Rai ship surrounding them, became alarmed and, in a last-ditch effort, refused to hand over Shirayuki. She tried to hurt her before fleeing, but was stopped by Rai's ships, who followed her through the water to a cave. Inside the cave, the pirate believed she would escape, but she was wrong. Rai's ships managed to cross the turbulent waters and reach her. After a tense confrontation, Rai's men managed to rescue Shirayuki and took her to safety while the mountain people surrounded the pirate. Zen promised Shirayuki that he would never leave her alone again and embraced her, relieved to have her back. During this time, one of the men insisted that the leader speak with Shirayuki. When the leader approached, Shirayuki immediately recognized him. It was none other than her father. Everyone was shocked by the revelation. The leader explained that he was Shirayuki's father. Although she might have forgotten him, he recognized her as soon as he saw her, for she looked so much like her late mother. After this, everyone headed to the mountains where the leader and his people lived. Upon arrival, a meeting was held, and the leader explained everything to Shirayuki. During this time, Shirayuki learned that Obi had disappeared and was upset for not being able to protect her. Worried about him, she went into the forest and found him. He was sad, but she reassured him, saying that none of this was his fault. Eventually, she managed to convince him to return to the celebration that was taking place. After everyone started enjoying the party, Obi later stepped aside and sat alone. It was then that Shirayuki's father approached him and began asking about Zen's feelings for his daughter. The father wanted to know if Zen truly had any affection for Shirayuki. Feeling a little shy, Obi answered with a yes. Meanwhile, Kiki and Mitsu told Shirayuki that she should go talk to Zen, and that's exactly what she did. She arrived at the exact moment when her father was still talking to Zen, and her father asked Zen to take good care of his daughter. Zen agreed willingly. Just as Zen was about to leave, he noticed Shirayuki standing there, which made him blush with embarrassment. For a moment, neither of them could look each other in the eye. When Zen was about to walk away, Shirayuki grabbed his hand and asked him to stay. Zen, without hesitation, did as she asked. They began talking, and during the conversation, Shirayuki apologized for accidentally breaking Zen's medallion. He, however, reassured her, saying there was no need to worry about it. For him, the most important thing was that she was by his side, and she was there with him. They soon returned to Hai's castle, where Shirayuki was preparing for the ball. Meanwhile, Hai's brothers were determined not to let Shirayuki leave. Rai secretly felt the same way, but didn't know how to stop her from leaving. At the ball, Rai and Shirayuki danced together while Zen observed from a distance, feeling a twinge of jealousy. The next day, Prince Rai said goodbye to Shirayuki and the others, allowing them to leave the castle. They made their way through the forest, but due to the heavy rain, they decided to stop at a nearby inn. Upon arriving, they asked about runes and quickly found one. That's when they noticed a mysterious young woman also arriving at the place. She kept watching Obi, but when she noticed him, she walked away uncomfortably. Later, a small debate broke out between Obi and Mitsu about which food Zen should try first. With his wit, Zen turned the situation to his favor, giving both of them a fun lesson. Meanwhile, the mysterious young woman reappeared and joined them, interacting playfully with everyone, although she continued to ignore Obi and left soon after. Later, everyone began preparing for bed. Shirayuki told Obi that, since he was always taking care of them, he should rest first. Obi, upon hearing this, chuckled and talked about how much he liked being with everyone, though he refused to explain why. They then arrived at the city, incapacitated the guards, and found the boy they were looking for. The girl asked the boy to come with them, but he refused, saying he had never felt free at home and didn't want to go back. In response, the girl tied him up and left him there to learn how to take responsibility for his own actions. Then she knocked out a guard and tried to climb a wall. However, her foot slipped and she almost fell, but at the last moment, Obi caught her, saving her from the fall. They then sat down and started talking. The girl asked Obi about the last time she saw him, when he was on a mission and gravely injured, refusing to let her take care of him. She wanted to know where he had disappeared to since he always liked working with different masters. Obi explained that now he was very comfortable with the people he was with and preferred to continue working with them. Shortly afterward, the light in the room came on, and when they entered, they found Zen and the others, who were looking for Obi. Seeing the injured girl, Shirayuki began treating her, while Zen asked Obi why he had said the girl was his friend. Obi explained that a few years ago during their work, they couldn't share personal information, so he had never mentioned her. Zen joked that if Obi disappeared again without warning, they wouldn't look for him anymore. A moment later, Shirayuki called Obi to tend to his wounds. Although he initially refused, he eventually gave in to Shirayuki's insistence, allowing her to take care of him. As she treated him, the girl noticed how much Obi had changed since the last time she had seen him. The next morning, Obi happily joined the others, and they all set off for the castle. Zen's older brother reflected on the marriage proposals, recalling what the younger women had previously suggested. Shirayuki, in the meantime, met with the head of the herbists and returned to her duties, happy to be back at work. Later on, Lord Cook informed Zen about his brother's plans to organize matchmaking meetings. According to him, Zen didn't even need to choose a bride from the selected candidates. Surprisingly, the chosen one was Kiki. Obi and Mitsuhide, upon seeing Zen and Kiki together, weren't surprised at all. They knew Kiki was the right choice for Zen. Obi, watching the scene, couldn't help but laugh and decided to tell Shirayuki what had happened. When he told her the news, Shirayuki wasn't surprised. She calmly explained that she trusted Prince Zen and knew he would talk to her about the decision. Mitsuhide, on the other hand, kept watching Zen and Kiki as he remembered the past, how he first met Kiki at a party. Zen had appeared at the time, and soon after Kiki became Zen's second attendant. However, back then, Mitsuhide didn't recognize her, and they both laughed about it later. Now that the matchmaking meetings were over, Zen returned to his work, and mentioned that after finishing his tasks, he would go see Shirayuki and share everything with her. Obi then informed Zen that Shirayuki already knew about the meeting, which left Zen a bit upset. He quickly went to look for her and asked where she was. Upon learning she was working in the greenhouse, he rushed there. When he found her, Zen explained that he had planned to tell her everything, but hadn't had the chance. Shirayuki calmly accepted his words and said she had already expected him to come talk to her. All the misunderstandings between them were finally cleared up, and both felt more at ease. The next day, Zen was walking when a maid accidentally dropped a sheet on him, causing him to get slightly injured. Later, the maid explained the incident to Shirayuki, who tended to Zen. Seeing that he wasn't seriously hurt, Shirayuki felt relieved. Zen, for his part, had already forgiven the maid, saying he wasn't angry about what had happened. He was acting quite strangely, and no one could understand what was going on with him. Soon, however, the herbalist explained that Mitsuhide had likely inhaled something unusual in his medical room, which caused his behavior to revert back to his usual self. The herbalist also mentioned that Mitsuhide had simply been trying to find something that brought peace, a kind of way to understand what he was going through. As confusing as it all seemed, it was just a reflection of his inner search for some tranquility. The following day, Zen was feeling concerned. He thought that Mitsuhide needed to recover quickly, or things could become even more difficult. He was trying to understand what was truly happening, and saw that Shirayuki had already prepared several samples to test as a treatment for Mitsuhide. They would need patience, but she was determined to find the best solution. Shirayuki headed to the library, where Zen later found her. They began to talk, and Zen opened up about his friendship with Mitsuhide. He explained that, in the beginning, the two of them were very close, but over time Mitsuhide had grown into someone more understanding. Zen really wanted Shirayuki to see the true side of Mitsuhide. Not as stern as he seemed, but someone who still had his own struggles. In the middle of their conversation, a stack of books almost fell on Shirayuki, but Zen reacted quickly and saved her from being hit. At that moment, Mitsuhide appeared, a little surprised, and assured her that nothing else would happen to her. Shirayuki, tireless, kept working to create the medicine needed to help Mitsuhide. When it was finally ready, she applied the treatment and managed to heal him successfully. Now recovered, Mitsuhide returned to Zen, who seemed a bit troubled, wanting to understand what had really happened. Obi then stepped forward and explained everything that had occurred, leaving Mitsuhide speechless. Sometime later, the head herbalist praised Shirayuki's work, so impressed that he officially made her his apprentice. Radiant with joy, Shirayuki thanked her friends for all the support that had helped her get to that point. The next day, Zen was traveling with his older brother, who made a point of praising Shirayuki's efforts to strengthen the ties between the two kingdoms. He also mentioned that a messenger from the kingdom of Rai was about to arrive, and Zen prepared to receive him. Shortly after, Obi noticed Mihaya sneaking around. With a smile, Mihaya explained that he was ready to welcome the messenger, who brought a noble gift. This kind of gift meant that, from that moment on, Shirayuki would be recognized as someone special to Prince Zen. At first, Shirayuki hesitated to accept the gift, but then she felt more at ease. The situation didn't seem as strange as she had initially thought. Even so, she still felt a bit overwhelmed, but Mihaya reassured her, telling her not to worry too much about it. Later, Shirayuki spoke with one of Rai's guards, who revealed that the prince had changed a lot because of her. Shirayuki couldn't fully understand it, but it was clear that something important was happening. When Zen arrived, he seemed calmer upon seeing that Shirayuki was doing well. She then confessed her true feelings, saying how much she wanted them to be together. Without hesitation, Zen took her to his room, where Obi explained that Zen had gone out for an important meeting. At that moment, everyone realized Zen was carrying Shirayuki, but no one interrupted them, allowing the two to spend time alone. Zen took her to a quiet place with a beautiful view, where they talked about their feelings. During the conversation, Zen revealed that he had already spoken to his older brother and expressed his wish to marry her. Shirayuki joyfully accepted the proposal, and their happiness felt complete. Later, Zen looked for his brother to inform him that the messenger would soon depart. His brother, smiling, realized that this was the first time Zen had looked at him with such confidence. When the time came to say goodbye to the messenger, he invited Shirayuki to visit the kingdom of Rai anytime she wished. After that, the messenger left, and Zen understood that many people wanted to take Shirayuki away. But the happiest part of it all was that she didn't want to leave. Shirayuki wanted to stay by Zen's side. And so, their story moved forward, with the promise of more moments shared with the one they loved.